Hello, welcome to our YouTube channel. If you are new to our channel, make sure to subscribe so that you will get notifications whenever we release new videos. Okay, so without further ado, let's get to the juicy part of today's tutorial. Alright, in this lecture we'll discuss about installing and configuring SQL Server. So when we say installing and SQL Server, we'll see three separate points here. So the first one is we will install SQL Server. We'll use Developer Edition as we discussed in our previous lesson. We discussed about editions. So from those editions, for this purpose, we'll use Developer because it will have all the enterprise level features. The only limitation is it's only for development and education purpose. So this is what we are going to use. And the second one is we'll also install, the first one will give us the database engine. So second, we will also install the SQL Server Management Studio so that we'll be able to access and manage our SQL Server engine. Okay. And finally, we'll see first time configurations. In this one, we'll see basic configuration like how to check if our service is started, our SQL Server service is started, and something like that. All right. So let's get to it. Okay, so let's search for SQL Server. So SQL Server download. And we have to make sure to access the Microsoft site. Since it's a free edition, we don't have to go around, right? We can get it from the source. So developer download now, click download now, and it will give us the installer, not the full setup, but the installer. So when we click the setup, Windows asks me a simple configuration question. Are you sure you want to open this application? Because it's a downloaded application, right? So I'll simply say yes. And the installer will start. At the time of recording, the latest version was 2022. So this is what we are going to use. And I will use basic configuration. Okay, but we can go through custom configuration as well. For this training, let's try basic configuration. And click accept here. And automatically the setup will select installation folder, right? This is obvious standard setup procedure. So let's click install. And this will take a couple of minutes or few minutes to first download all the installer package and then install it actually. So we'll come back after a few minutes. Okay, now download is completed. So it's actually started installing it in our machine now. Okay, the basic installation is completed. Just telling me the basic parameters or variables used for this installation and the folder locations. So everything looks fine. Now this has completed the engine, the database engine, right? And the database engine can be accessed using this connection string. But we don't want to access the database engine like in a command prompt or something difficult, right? So SQL Server Management Studio makes life very easier. It will give us a much powerful and easier to use interface to access our database engine. So let's install that. So click install SSMS, and it will open the Microsoft documentation with the latest SSMS installation, right? So as you can see here, the download SSMS, and it will give us two options. We can download the SSMS 19 version. It's in preview mode, or we can download the 18 version. But we have to download 19 because most of the time this 18 version may not support. If you install the latest database engine, this version of SQL Server Management Studio might not support it. So just make sure to download SSMS 19 or whichever is latest when you view this video. So let's click on download SSMS 19. And then it will take us to the download page. So now this link, click this link, download SQL Server Management Studio 19. It's preview, but it should be fine for us. All right, now it started downloading. This time it downloads the actual installation setup, so it might take a few seconds. All right, it's ready. So let's click on the setup. There you go. So this is Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio with Azure Data Studio. I didn't select Azure Data Studio, but it came in anyways, so we don't mind. It won't affect us. So just click install and everything will set up. So Microsoft will ask me a yes or no question, just security. So just click yes. You may not see the yes or no window. That's why I'm mentioning it. Right, so the installation might take a few minutes. So we'll come back once it's finished. All right, SSMS installation is completed. So let's close this window. And the other one as well. Close. Yes. Now SQL Server installation is completed, right? And here, just FYI, for the basic database administration tasks that we are going to see for a few videos to come, this SQL Server installation is enough. So that's why I wanted to start from the simple installation or the basic installation. Okay. So once we get into the more advanced topics of database administration, then we might have to revisit our SQL Server installation, right? Because there are different services that we are going to use in our database administration and maybe not included in the basic installation. So keep in mind, okay, whenever it's required, we will update our SQL Server installation. But to begin with, at this moment, this is more than enough. All right, so let's try to access our SQL Server. So click Start, SSMS. So this is the one, SQL Server Management Studio, version 19, preview 4. This is the version I installed. You should be able to see your version. All right. Okay, so to connect to our SQL Server, sometimes you will get the server name here. If not, click on this arrow, click on Browse for more, and on the Local Server tab, when you expand Database Engine, you should be able to see your database engine, the SQL Server database engine. Since we haven't provided any SQL Server engine name, it will automatically take the computer name. So this could be different for you. It will take your computer name. So select that, click OK, and then we can click Connect, right? Let's see if it connects. There you go. So since we are using Developer Edition, as we discussed, it has enterprise features, all enterprise features. So now this is asking me to have an approved certificate for my connection, to be able to connect SQL Server Management Studio and the SQL Server engine, right? Remember, because they are two separate installations. So we can install SQL Server engine on one server and SQL Server Management Studio on another server. Okay, so that's why the connection should be encrypted. So for now, let's change the setting. Okay, this is one of the first time configurations. Okay, so what we can do is click options here, and on the connection properties, As you can see here, it says encrypt connection. So now I don't want encrypted connection for now because both tools are installed in one machine. So encrypt connection doesn't really make sense right now. So now after this, go to login tab and click connect. Now we should be able to connect, right? Now this is our SQL Server. So this is how we install, configure and connect to our SQL Server instance. Sometimes there could be another first time configuration that we have to check. And that is, since SQL Server Database Engine is a Windows service, we have to make sure that the service is up and running. So what we can do is click Start and type Service. So I will get Services. So let's click on Services. And here, let's expand this window and just click on something and press S. So we should be able to see every service starts with S. So the SQL Server, this is our SQL Server engine, right? If this SQL Server engine is stopped, for example, let me disconnect this and let's stop the service. Right click, stop. For some reason, if this service is stopped, then if you try to connect to this engine, there will be a problem, right? It will take some time trying to find the appropriate service. We can click cancel. I just want you to see the error also. This is how we get comfortable with SQL Server and its bells and whistles, right? And most importantly, its error messages when each error happens, right? And how to fix it. Hopefully we'll see a bunch of those throughout this course. So right now, the error I'm getting is a network related or instance specific error. Basically, SQL Server doesn't know what happened and it's unable to connect to our SQL Server engine. Okay, so what we can do is go to the service and you have to make sure that it's SQL Server and in bracket MS SQL Server. Unless you give it a specific SQL Server version or the SQL Server instance name, the default will be MS SQL Server. Okay, now right click, start. Once it's started, we'll see the status running, right? Now let's try to connect. There you go. So this is how we can configure our service. First time configurations, of course. There will be other more advanced configurations that we'll get to when the time comes. All right, see you in the next lecture.